What's up, everybody? My name is Jay, and you are listening to the very first episode of the Heart of a Lion podcast. And this podcast is honestly long, and I do mean long, overdue. But without further ado, the time is now, and we just gonna hop right into it. Again, my name is Jay. I am a husband to an amazing, a beautiful, a gorgeous, a loving wife. I am a father to two amazing children. I have a daughter who is the life of the party, but also the biggest daddy's girl in the world. And I have a son who is literally filled with the joy of the Lord. I am a photographer and videographer. I'm a huge basketball fan. Love watching all basketball, NBA, WNBA, college, high school. It really doesn't matter. I'll watch some kids play. I enjoy watching basketball. I also enjoy playing basketball. Big WWE fan, have been since I was a kid. Kind of got away from it in my 20s, but again, I'm a huge WWE fan. As of this recording, the Royal Rumble just happened, so that was exciting to watch. Big fan of music. Have always been a big fan of music, and I probably get that from my parents because, my parents listening to good music, when I was a kid, and I just, I fell in love with the music that they listened to, and, now I love, I love what I listen to, and I always try to put people onto what I listen to. Yeah, I'm also a big movie person, love movies. Don't get a chance to watch them nearly as much as I would like to, just because, life is busy when you work and are married and have two kids. So, but I still enjoy a good movie from time to time. But above all else, I'm a follower of Jesus. I am all those other things, but being a Christ follower is at the top. And to me, like that's the most important relationship, Again, this podcast probably should have happened, long time ago. But with me, one thing about me is I, tend to procrastinate sometimes, but I also am a perfectionist. So, I have recorded episodes before and thought I, was killing it. And then I went back and listened to it later. I was like, yeah, I don't like the way that sounds. Or, thought I was killing it, went back and listened to it later. I was like, yeah, I changed my mind on how I felt. Or I recorded and then listened to it later. I was like, man, I came across too harsh. And it's like, I'm just, been very critical of how, how I sounded or what I recorded or whatever. But coming into it today, today is actually the most peace I had coming into recording an episode. And I literally prayed like right before I started recording and just said, may I not get caught up in being a perfectionist, but may I just be caught up in you, Lord. So it's not about being perfect. It's just today it's just really about starting. It's really just about doing it. Who cares if it's the perfect episode? It's the first episode. You just have to start. I would encourage somebody else and tell somebody else just to start. But for me, it's hard to just to start. So today is a day about starting. The time is now. And, what do I mean by that? Where do I want to go with this? Let me say this first. So this podcast is called The Heart of a Lion, and essentially what that means is it's me sharing my heart on different issues, as well as me sharing what I believe is the heart of the Father based on scripture, but also based on what I believe that he's revealed to me, and not every episode is going to be, Jesus. Because again, I have a variety of different interests. So sometimes I might want to talk about basketball. Sometimes I want to talk about photography or videography or movies or whatever, but at the end of the day, what I always hope to do in most every episode is to redirect people back to Jesus. I hope to lead people to Jesus for the first time or to lead them back to him if they had strayed away. And as much as this podcast is for Christians, it's also for non-Christians too, because non-Christians need salvation as well. And I think that sometimes, we as Christians forget that, that non-Christians need salvation, and we only worry about those on the inside. And to an extent, sometimes, depending on what the situation is, that may be the case where we just focus on those on the inside. But at the end of the day, we all need salvation, so we can't forget about those other people as well. So again, this is for the Christian and the non-Christian. But again, the time is now. And the reason why I keep saying that is because Christmas Day of 2022, I had this dream that sometimes I try to act like it didn't scare me, but it did scare me. But I had a dream that I was out with some people who I wouldn't normally hang out with, and some people, but these were people that I knew, and we were out and we were planning to play a kickball game. And before the game started, you could see like the thunderclouds, the storm clouds coming, and just as the game was getting ready to kick off, the thunderclouds were over us, and the sky was getting dark, and then you could see the thunder. And you know how you have that thunder crackle, and how the sky will flash, the lightning will flash, and then you have the big boom. So it did that. Like it was like the crackle, the lightning, and then just before the big boom, the sky went dark, and then the sky didn't light back up. And then it was like several seconds and the sky didn't light back up. And I just remember screaming, "It's Jesus. Jesus is here. Jesus is back. He's coming. He's coming." And a few moments later, the sky began to light up, but the sky lit up with souls. Like literally, like it wasn't people, but it was all I could see was souls lighting up the sky. And these souls were lighting up the sky, but then going down to hell. And you could just hear screaming and whatnot. And then next thing I know, I start to see specific images or specific people who were then going down to hell. And I was just stuck, like just watching everything transpire. I was watching everything happen. And I didn't go down to hell, but in the dream, I also didn't go up to heaven either. I was just stuck watching everything transpire. And at the end of the dream, it was a really strong impression, and I really felt like God was telling me the time is now. Tell my people the time is now. The time is now to get it right. The time is now to get it together. The time is now to choose me, so in 2023, I already had an Instagram for my business page, but I created a separate Instagram for my personal use, and was really just pushing hard on the things of God, whatever I felt like God was revealing to me. But I'm not gonna say often, but in several videos, I talked about how the time is now and how we needed to get together. The time is now how we need to get it together, and that a time is coming where we won't have a choice but to choose between God or the world. A time is coming where it's either Jesus or the world, like Jesus or nothing, essentially. And what was interesting was also I started seeing other people who have, I won't say more prominent, people who are more known than I am, and some of them who have a large platform, who are talking about the time is now, or Jesus is coming soon, or whatever. And it says it in the Bible, or people have been saying for a while that that Jesus is coming back, Jesus is coming soon, and we know that he is to come back one day. And coming soon could be tomorrow, or it could be 100, 500, 1,000 years from now. We don't know, but we do know that we're getting closer and closer to his return. But that also being said, like if you see the way the world is going, like we're really getting closer and closer to that point where it's like you have to choose what you want to do, because we're getting closer and closer to the point where you can't afford to be lukewarm anymore. You either choose the church or you choose the world. And I mean, there are people who are getting exposed left and right. You have people who are being called out. You have people who are being accused. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that everything is true, but if at the end of the day, if somebody is going to accuse you of something, let them accuse you of being a child of God, and not let them accuse you of being something else, something that you're trying to hide in the dark. So that was the one dream, and that's what I did throughout 2023. And then just last week, I had a dream. It was a dream. You know how sometimes you have a dream and it's like you try to force yourself out of the dream, like you're trying to wake up, but you can't wake up. So I felt I was trying to force myself out of this dream. And when I eventually woke up, I literally felt a presence lift up off me. And after that moment, I knew, again, the time is now. The time is now to start this podcast. The time is now to do the things of God. The time is now, to just get right. Like, again, we can't afford to be stagnant. We can't afford to be lukewarm. We can't afford to be worldly. We can't afford to, be caught up in, what the world thinks or what the world does. It's like, forget all that. Like, what does God say? What does his word say? What would he have me to do? The time is now to get your health right. The time is now to get your finances right. The time is now to make amends with your family. The time is now to start that business. The time is now to, start on that course, or to start on the course of a relationship with God, or to turn back to God. We can't afford to not get our lives right. Again, look at the way the world is going. There is so much that is different now compared to 10 years ago. There's so much now that's different compared to 20 years ago. If you look at, schools or churches or really anywhere you go, things are changing, and a lot of things are changing for the worse. But the only right way is Jesus. And it's through Jesus, through Jesus to salvation, through Jesus to heaven. Through Jesus is how we find how to do right and to live right. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be peaches and cream. It doesn't mean that you're going to have this happy, blissful life. But one thing I've learned is that I would rather do life with Christ than without him. I heard it said in a song one time years ago that my worst day as a believer is better than my best day without Christ. And I'd have to argue and say, I can't even argue. I'd have to agree and say it's true, because it's like, if you think about your best day without Christ, in general, like, happiness, is temporary. It fades away. But even on your worst day with Christ, like, there's still joy. There's still peace. There's still love. There's still kindness. There's still gentleness. There's still the goodness of God when you have that relationship. And, the time is now to really fulfill that, to really step into that, to really hear what the Lord is saying. We can't afford to not hear what the Lord is saying. I was reading in 1 Kings 13 last week, and it was talking about two different prophets. And I didn't say names, so I'll just say Prophet 1 and Prophet 2. But Prophet 1 was given specific instructions, told not to go a certain way, told not to eat or drink, and just listen to the Lord. And then, some man tried to get him to do something. He said, the Lord told me not to do such and such, whatever. Then this prophet number 2 comes along and tries to get him to come eat and drink. And Prophet 1 says, no, the Lord told me not to eat and drink. He told me not to go back this way. Prophet 2 said, the Lord told me to tell you to come with me and to eat and drink. And then in parentheses, it said he was lying. So Prophet 1 goes with Prophet 2 based on what Prophet 2 says. So then when he goes, the Lord then speaks to Prophet 2 and says that because Prophet 1 disobeyed the order that God had given him, that he would surely die. And Prophet 1 ended up dying by being mauled by a lion. And Prophet 2, after the fact, felt bad, but it just goes to show you that we're in a day and age where you can't afford to listen to anybody else's voice. Look at Adam and Eve. They listened to the serpent, and and we all know what happened from there. But we can't afford to listen to the voice of somebody else. We have to consecrate ourselves in the presence of God. We have to consecrate ourselves to allow ourselves to hear from him and hear clearly. yes, your friends can pour into, yes, your pastor can pour into you, can speak to you, yes, the apostles, the prophets, whoever can pour into you, can speak to you, can give you a word. But at the end of the day, what does God say? It doesn't matter who gives you what. You need to go back to God and say, God, what would you have me to do? I don't care if they say, you're going to be a millionaire, billionaire, or whatever, or you need to do this. Even if it's true, you still need to take it to God first and see what God would have you to do. Like what are the steps that he would have you to do? How would he have you to move? What path would he have you to take? Does that mean that, he needs you to move now? Does that mean he needs you to be patient? Whatever it is, you just got to trust God and follow his leading, follow the path that he would have for you. And, it's what I would say is, for some people, they might say that, it ain't that deep, but I would argue and say, maybe you're just not deep enough, or maybe you don't realize, how deep it actually is. I'm somebody who loves to swim, right? So I remember as a kid, as I was getting my swimming lessons, I would see people who were jumping, who were swimming in the deep end, and I thought that they were crazy. And then as I learned to swim in the deep end, I saw people who were jumping off the diving board. I thought they were crazy. And then as I learned to jump off the diving board, I saw people who were jumping off of a high dive, and I thought that they were crazy. And then as I learned to jump off the high dive, I saw people who were, swimming in oceans, or people who were doing Olympics dives and different things like that. And I was like, man, those people are crazy. But my point is the deeper that you go in God, the more things may look crazy to you. But when you listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit reveals not only what is for you, but he reveals to you the depths, that there are. And sometimes he has you to go into a depth that may look crazy or sound crazy to you. But in order to grow closer to him, or in order for you to get your blessing, in order for you to grow in your faith, it requires you to step into what looks crazy in order to receive what he has for you, or in order to fulfill what he has for you. It doesn't matter what anybody else has to say. If they say it ain't that deep, then okay, it ain't that deep for them, but it is that deep for me. You can stay in the kiddie pool, but I'm gonna be over here in the deep end where he has me. Or you can stay over here in the 3 feet, but I'm gonna be over here in this Olympic pool doing what he would have me to do. It doesn't matter what anybody else has to say. As long as you're listening to the voice of God, then at the end of the day, that is all that matters. Because again, it's God's voice above all. I'd rather be hated by the world and loved by God than loved by the world and hated by God. So that's where we are, and this is not meant to condemn anybody. It's not meant to make anybody feel bad about themselves. It's just meant to open people's eyes and see that God needs us to move now. There can be no more delay, no more procrastination. Don't wait for a new month, a new year, a new whatever, to do what God has called you to do. Just start now. Start now. Because again, we can't afford to delay. So the time is now. Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Heart of a Lion podcast. Again, my name is Jay. You can find me on Instagram or on YouTube at Mr. Highsmith 86. Again, that's Mr. Highsmith 86. All right, y'all. Until next time.